Hello and welcome to this month's episode of the Marketing Helpdesk. We're here today joined by a good friend and a client of ours, Liam. Good to have you join us, Liam.
Good to be here. Thank you very much.
And welcome back from the land of the dead, Phil. I know you've been ill for a few days, so good of you to show up and join us as well. Always nice to have a full house. And apologies for if you are joining us live. We're about 5 minutes late starting because apparently, what's the point in having a podcast microphone because it just gives you echo. So I've had to move to my spare computer. Luckily, I have one as a video editor. I have no idea why we're getting echo, but hey, hopefully we've solved the problem. Am I coming through all right now, gents?
Yeah, you sound much better, mate. Now that you've turned all your professional equipment off, it does sound quite good.
Hopefully everybody at home's getting the same experience then. We never know. So we've got a monthly slot that we run, Marketing Helpdesk, and we tend to feature different aspects of marketing as well as showcasing some of the clients that we have in the Marketing Helpdesk business. And today we wanted to combine a little bit of the two and showcase Liam. Not sure that's a wise thing to do, but we've got him here anyway. But also to kind of talk about something that is very much central to the business that Liam is building, as well as Phil and myself here at Marketing Helpdesk, is that all three of us are dads in business. And I know many other business owners who are out there who are sat and probably working from home. There's children downstairs screaming for bottles, and nursery time comes and you've got to go and pick kids up and drop kids off and sick calls and all the rest of the stuff that comes with being a business dad, aside from the challenges of, entrepreneurship and running your own business is hard enough to start with without then having to go downstairs and deal with the chaos that ensues when work finishes. While still trying to have family fun time, I think, which is quite important for everyone. So today's episode is about being parents in business, and who better to lead with that than Liam, who is the self-titled Dadvisor, which I love, by the way. I think that's a fantastic way of showcasing what it is that you do. But Liam, welcome to the show, and would you start us off by giving just kind of a quick whirlwind tour of how you got to starting your own business?
Well, I've been involved in financial protection for, I'd say, close to 15 years now, in various guises. I've learned the industry kind of inside out through kind of admin, sales, running my own show, so to speak. And over the years, I guess, through the journey I've been on, I kind of said to myself about 8 months ago, who do I want to deal with? Who do I think needs the most help? Who do I resonate with the most? And it was quite quick to realize business owner dads that's my demographic, because I am one. So who can empathize better with a business owner dad than a business owner dad? So that's kind of where I gear my services towards. And I guess a key thing for me in understanding that market is understanding the challenges that come with it. So I kind of base my whole ethos around making, albeit a small thing, but a very important thing in securing protection. I make that as easy, enjoyable, and as accessible as I can to the business owner dads that I deal with, whether that's we jump on Teams at 9 o'clock when for certain the kids are going to be asleep, and there's never any certainty in that, but we leave it as late as we can. We tend to get it done properly. So I kind of make sure that a really important job is made as easy as possible for those dads in business.
Perfect. I think from our side of things, Liam, there's a whole aspect of protection out there that, like, quite honestly, a lot of people I know just don't even consider as being it's necessary evil, right? And I think that's unfortunately the way a lot of people view on it. But I know that I've introduced you to a couple of people who are very close to me in my network, and you've been able to work wonders for supporting them, who are also dads, right? Like, who are also dads, and like, it's not to say that there isn't business to be done with other people, but I love the fact that you are so proud of being a parent, like me and like Phil, that we really align with each other. What would you describe as being the hardest part of being a parent in business for people who are out at home? I'm sure we'll all resonate, but in your own words, I guess.
I think for me, it's probably the time management, and to dive into that a little bit further, it's not so much organizing your time, it's what you're actually doing in that time. And not to try and plug Marketing Helpdesk, but truthfully, that's probably been the biggest benefit of me, probably more so from Phil than has been from yourself, Paul, because I've obviously worked closer with Phil. But we sit down and work out what's important to me, and then it enables me to, if I'm blocking out a certain amount of time to get a particular task done, I'm kind of laser focused on that task, so that I get the most out of what I'm doing. Because as a business owner, dad, and a hands-on dad, I am on the school run probably 50% of the time, which I share with the missus. So it's really about getting the most out of that window where you just dedicating 1 hour, 2 hours to a particular task. Because without that, I'd be, I mean, we will speak, I'm sure we'll speak about ADHD at some point as well, but you know exactly what I'm like, Paul, with my time. And if I'm not quite committed to what I'm doing, or I'm not quite focused and planned well enough, I'll mess about with it. Nearly swore, then realize we were live. I'll mess about with it for as long as I can. Then all of a sudden, I get a little ping that my missus has put in my calendar, school run. I'm like, I've not got that done. So 100% it'll be time management for me.
I wonder, like, speaking with some of the people that I know of, I think there's a statistic out there that people who own their own businesses are 600 times more likely to be ADHD than any other job role out there. And that really blew me away, but it does tie in with a lot of the conversations that I've been having with other people. I went through that journey myself only recently, probably last year. I kind of self-diagnosed, did some, like, I'm not interested in being formally diagnosed. Like, it's not a major restrictive issue for me, but it was a watershed moment for me to realize that the things that were holding back my son had come from me, and that I'd solved for those problems, some of them, most of them, and that my own experiences were potentially the key to helping him unlock his future potential as well. But I wonder, like, what's your experience in terms of, like, do you talk to other people about your ADHD and then find everybody going, oh, they're just really curious, and then start to question themselves? Because, like, I always find that there's things that I share, there's things that I do that I always assume were just, everyone does them, right? And it turns out everyone doesn't do them. I'm weird in a good way, and I am weird in a bad way as well, but, like, that's different story. Yes, I can see your face. I'll just get it in before you see it. I am, yeah. But, like, there was things that I'd always kind of taken for granted, that, like, oh, everybody must think that way. And as I was talking with people, they were going, oh, I do that. That's not, to hear somebody else doing that, like, that's really different and interesting. And, like, I've actually had 2 clients go away and get themselves tested, and turned out they were ADHD. Like, I pointed out to them they were. I was like, you're like me, you're in my club. Yeah. Is that your experience as well?
Yeah, but to flip it on its head a little bit, I'd go the other way and say the people, and this kind of makes sense because people tend to find commonality in people, don't they? And they'll draw to people that they've got, like you and I, for example. I'd say we got on really well, but there's a lot of similarities we've got. But I'm finding that the more I'm speaking to people about it, the more I'm actually having people say to me, yeah, Christ, I do that. And I think we're in that probably age bracket now where when we were kids and at school, ADHD didn't really exist. It was, and I can remember my school reports from my mum used to tell me I was always in the top sets for everything, so I was quite switched on at school. But it was, every headline was easily distracted. I remember mum and dad getting a bit annoyed at one point and just, I think they volunteered me on report at school. They wanted to know how I was doing, because all that ever got said was, he's got a lot of potential, he's very intelligent, but he's very easily distracted. And And that was it. It wasn't a case of, okay, let's we look into this. Is there more going on with Liam than what kind of meets the eye? It was just Liam's easily distracted. He's a bit of a class clown at times, but he's switched on. But now it's very different. And I think there's people in our age bracket, the sort of mid to late 30s, early to mid 40s, that have probably gone through the same stuff we went through at school. And their kids are going through it because obviously we know there's as much chance of inheriting ADHD as there is height and eye colour. So obviously I've gone through it with Eliza, and I'm seeing her in school getting easily distracted. I'm like, right, okay, we need to put a stop to this because she's intelligent. She's not naughty, but if something's not engaging her the right way, we're not going to get the most out of her. So I'm finding that the people I'm speaking with never got the diagnosis because it wasn't really a thing when we were growing up, or it was, but just wasn't a talked about thing. But now they're going through that journey themselves and realizing I've got all these traits, and they're trying to balance, this is another topic for another day, but they're trying to balance helping their own kid with their ADHD whilst being a business owner, managing their own ADHD, discovering their own ADHD, discovering all the idiosyncrasies that come with it, and kind of working out, right, now that I know this is how my brain works, how do I get the most out of it? We could probably do another talk on that for hours and hours, to be fair.
I think that's true. Like, honestly, there is so much that we could cover. Like, this could even be a podcast all of its own. And there are many podcasts out there for parents in ADHD and combinations of the two, and parents who are business owners. So I think there's a lot of interest in it. There's a lot of curiosity now where I think perhaps once there wasn't. I'll kind of come across to you, Phil. What's, in your experience, what holds back a lot of businesses that you're talking to whose owners are parents? Like, is it the case that they're still just trying to eat? Like, I'll refine that question a little bit. Has being a parent and a business owner been impacted heavily by COVID and the impacts of COVID? Phil wants to throw a curveball on a live stream. Like,
yeah. So I mean, the first question you asked, it's relatively straightforward. It's this time of year. In fact, this time of year, then around July, then again November, December time, everything ties into school holidays. So decisions don't get made because team members aren't. For bigger companies, team members aren't available. For smaller operations where it's maybe 1-2 people in the business, they're around, but their focus is somewhere else. So we can't start thinking about these things. With COVID and the knock-on effect from that, it's difficult because actually we didn't start up in business until COVID had struck. So commenting on pre-COVID versus now is tricky. Also, I can see it from the other side as being an employee, and from running other people's companies. From running other people's companies, you still have the same problems. You still had parents needing to take time off because children are sick, having to drop everything at the last minute. Decisions not getting made because people aren't available. Those challenges are always going to be there, whether you're physically in an office or whether everyone's remote or whatever, because your attention needs to be on the challenges right in front of you. If I get a phone call now to say that something's happened to Oscar, I will close this call down and I'll leave.
Yeah.
I can be at his nursery in 2 minutes if I ignore the traffic lights, or I can be at his school in 45 seconds. Whereas it'll take Claire 20 minutes to get home at this time of day because she's actually physically somewhere else.
Yeah.
And between us, we juggle it because it helps that actually Claire's she works shifts. So she works 5 in the morning till lunchtime or 7 in the morning till 2:30 in the afternoon. So there's I will always do mornings. Claire does afternoons, and we generally do bedtimes together.
But I think what you've described there, though, is the impact of COVID, right? I think a lot of people were in that corporate space who went through COVID, like I did, and transitioned out of corporate in no small part to the fact that we were born through COVID. And I think there is now people are much more likely to start their own micro business, small business, have their own business idea. And COVID was actually the catalyst for them starting to choose that, because of the balance that they could achieve for home life and parenting as a result of doing it, as well as not really wanting to be on site a lot of the time. Certainly for those of us who've had a career already and are kind of now middle of that, like figuring out what we do next, I think that was a bit of a transition point.
That only really works for people that have that mindset, though. Not everybody has a mindset that they can run their own business, or even the desire to do it. But what they want is the ability to be flexible.
Yeah.
Now, for us, not as Helpdesk, but as Bacon, what we've done to try and help with that is we've tried doing full flexible. It didn't work for the business. So the halfway house on that is to have core hours that the business is always going to be available for. So set that as 10 in the morning until 2:30, which means it works for parents. It works for everybody else as well, because it means that people who are parents themselves that we're dealing with, they know that we're not going to try and book that they can book calls around times that they're going to be available.
Yeah.
For team members who are parents, they can book. They know that they only need to be able to be bookable for calls between those times. Anyone that's part-time, those obviously get adjusted depending on which side of the day they decide they're going to work in. But the decision is always on team member then as well.
Yeah.
The key bit is about accessibility. And with Liam's point about being accessible at times when children are asleep or not screaming the house down, we've tried to do that, but during the day, so normal business hours, because what we do is a business function.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess, Liam, does that tie in with what you've seen as well? Is that your experience? Because obviously you've got a slightly different target market, well, very different to some extent, target market to that Phil works with. Are you seeing the same things yourself?
Yeah, I would say so. It ties in well in that what Phil's basically suggested there is people's general core operating hours tend to be between 10 and half 2. And obviously for business owners, that's the time they're spending on their business. Whereas we're talking about protection, which is, yes, it's going to kind of for the business, but the reality is it's mostly for them and their family. So they're spending that time 10 till half 2, 3, 4, focusing on their own priorities. And then I'll exchange a lot of emails at that time. I do a lot on WhatsApp at that time. Then the reality is people want to see me after 7:38. And then by that time they've down tools, kids are in bed, kids are asleep. It's a tough one to balance, because a lot of the time I'm looking at it as a parent myself and thinking, this guy's been at work all day. He might have been up since 6. Might have gone to the gym in the morning, done his morning's work, had a bite to eat, or probably not most times, grafted through the afternoon, done the school run, he's come home, cooked tea, and then I'm saying to him 8 o'clock, right, have you got an hour to sit and talk about your finances? And I kind of say it almost tongue in cheek, like saying, you're probably knackered, and I appreciate that, but you know this is important, so if you got an hour now just to go through this, and 9 times out of 10 I do get, this is I think it's the realization from the business owners that if they don't spend this hour 8 or 9, they're just not going to prioritize it. And that's on me really to sort of create that urgency and say, look, I know it's not the most fun thing you're ever going to do. I'll try and make it light-hearted. I'll have a bit of a laugh. And I had one client last week who we jumped on Teams, week before, jumped on Teams and went through everything, him and his missus, and he sat there with 3 cans of Stella lined up because he said, I'm absolutely knackered all day. I want a couple of beers and we'll go for it. So I was like, mate, you crack on, whatever makes you comfortable. And we had quite a laugh doing it, to be fair. But that's the reality that people are. Say again.
I'm not going to lie. The last time I did so I've got a financial advisor, and the last time I did that was 8 o'clock at night. And I am not going to lie, I sat there with a neat rum in my hand on a Wednesday evening.
Pint.
Like
At least you can judge their alcohol consumption while you're on the call as well. So you can
we actually had that
tick the
joke.
appropriate boxes.
Yeah, I came to that. I was like, alcohol consumption is a very important part of this, so we'll see what your answers are. We've got it recorded.
Were you looking at him in the yellows of his eyes? So I guess then moving on to the subject of protection, it's something that I think is very kind of underestimated for most people. It's one of those things that only other people need, because only those things happen to other people, right? Until it happens to you. And I know you had quite an interesting is probably like a really harsh word, but like you had a really hard time of things when your kids arrived, that kind of led you down the path of focusing much more on being a parent. Is that something that you see reflected in the people that come directly to you? Have they gone through something like that and understand the importance of what you do, or do you have much more of an uphill battle in terms of you've got to kind of articulate what pitfalls they might face?
Do you know what, mate? I'd say it's right down the middle. And I know which client I prefer speaking to. It's those that accept the reality of what's going on and what can happen. But I would honestly say I'm right down the middle. Like, won't go into any names for obvious reasons, but there's people you've recommended to me who have seen firsthand the reality of what can and does happen to people. And for those people, I don't need to spend 30% of my energy convincing them that they're doing the right thing and that these things can happen to people that are otherwise fit and healthy. So they're always the kind of people I'd rather speak to. And the reality is they understand they need that cover as well. And I don't have to spend any time kind of convincing them, statistically 1 in 2 and things like that. But then the other side of the coin is I do get a big sense of achievement when I've got someone that's on the phone with me, or I've gone round to see them and they're saying, well, no one's ever had this in my family, so I'm not really bothered about that. I said, well, yeah, but everyone could sit and say that, but the reality is 1 in 2 people are going to be affected by cancer, for example. So it's all about people's attitude to risk. It's the same with investing and everything else, and life in general. Like, certain people are just not going to be convinced that this is going to happen to them. And I do get, like, because I've done this for so long, I do get almost a bit of a sense of guilt if something happens to somebody that I know and I've not forced the conversation on them. I do get a little bit of a sense of overwhelming guilt, because I think, how hard could I push them to talk about this? And it's happened before where I've had people close to me that have lost family members and friends, and they've had cancer diagnoses and all sorts of stuff. And I know I can't tell everybody, please ring me and let's have a conversation, so that if it happens, we've got something in place. But and anyone that spends a decade or so in protection will tell you the same thing. That, like, you it's just a constant battle. You're always fighting, trying to get people to take it seriously and get it done. And then you're always going to know someone that gets something really bad happen to them, and you think, should have texted him, should have given her a call, should have done this, that, and the other. And that's just a battle that we're always going to fight as protection advisors, to be honest.
It's nice for me and Phil when we hear you talk, Liam, because I know that you come from that place of wanting to serve people, not make money out of the back of it. Yes,
yeah,
obviously you do make money out of the back of it, but that's a side effect, not what you're in it for. Because, like, we've all seen the stories in the there's the industry as a whole, not just protection itself, but kind of insurance advisors, protection, wealth advisement. Like, there are lots of bad actors out there who are in it for themselves and tell people half truths, and not even that sometimes, just to get things moving. So it's refreshing for me to talk with somebody who's so massively passionate. And, like, when you first said you were going to be the Dadvisor, like, when you were going to style your brand in that way and you were going to focus on helping dads, part of me thought, ooh, like, that's a bit of you're cutting off a lot of people there by doing that. But actually, having heard your story and understanding why that's your passion, mate, you're absolutely entitled, I'd argue, to kind of brand yourself that, and you should be proud of the fact that you're doing it for the reasons that you do. What always constantly amazes me is all the new products that are out there. Like, you were talking about one not so long back around pregnancy cover. and having gone through a pretty traumatic pregnancy with my wife, well, traumatic birth in August of last year with my youngest son, I actually wish we'd known anything about that sort of service, because when I was there at the operating table and things were less than favorable at that point in time, all that was going through my head was, how am I going to survive? Do you know what I mean? Because it was, again, something that happens to other people. Doesn't happen to you until it does.
Yeah.
Like what sort of things are you kind of like, are there new innovations like that coming out all the time, new products coming out that?
Yeah, the protection industry is constantly evolving. There's always new bits and bobs, but the thing that I think you're gearing towards there is Zurich's pregnancy cover, which is the first of its kind. So typically, I'll try not to go too stat heavy here because stats can be a little bit boring, but typically people that take out protection because of a baby do it on average 11 months after the baby arrives. Now, my world and anybody that's on my LinkedIn's probably seen my post about when Eliza came early, the reality of that. And I think I put in that blog, had we had access to this Zurich product, we'd have had about either 55 or like 105 grand in the bank, because they recognize, Zurich, that babies do come early, and there are babies born with congenital defects that cause families extended stays in hospital, extended time off work, and all that's financially impacting. But Zurich, to be truthful, are the only ones that are kind of operating in that space right now. They're the only ones that have brought in this kind of pregnancy cover where the cover kicks in before the baby even arrives. And that's a massive, and I would very much expect the industry will kind of kick on the back of that. And what happens a lot of the time is somebody will come out with something that's quite innovative, and then it won't be long before the wider market thinks we should be doing this. There's a need here. Like I said before, 90,000 babies are born early in the UK, almost all of which require some sort of time overnight in hospital. And the Zurich product, there's certain ways that it'll kick in and help parents with that. And we were lucky in the way that we had no real problems with Eliza when she was in neonatal. Define the word lucky. But at the same time, like, the costs that we incurred on the back of that, we just had to incur them. There was no policy to kind of take care of it. You know, it's little things that you don't think about, like,
well, that's
a day in the car park.
Out about there is like there'll be plenty of people who sat there and heard you say 55 to 105,000, and they're sat there thinking, I don't want to make money out of that situation happening. I don't care about the money. I just want to deal with the situation. But the fact of the matter is, it's not there as a consolation prize.
No, and I talk about this a lot. Like, I talk about insurance. Like, you're not having it to win the lottery and go out and buy a new Audi. Like, that's not what it's there for. Like, obviously you're going to deal with a problem at hand because you're a parent now, and that's the only thing that matters is dealing with it. But you can deal with the problem and then have the financial worries mounting up, or you can deal with the problem and have the financial worries totally taken care of. Yeah. And the only difference between the two is an hour's conversation with an advisor and saying, right, if you're planning a baby, I think this is a really good product for you to look at, and these are the reasons I would recommend it for you. It's not about, I have had people say the same thing, Paul, where they say, I'd almost feel guilty with a load of money in the bank if I had a baby. I wouldn't feel guilty. I'd think, I haven't got to panic about the mortgage this month. I haven't got to panic about buying lunch every day because I'm in the hospital visiting my little, and I've got to panic about the car parking bill every day because, like I said, we were in there for 72 days, £8 a day car parking. Quickly work that out, you're looking at thick end of 600 quid. That's just on car parking, plus the 2 or 3 visits to Costa a day. We're spending 20-30 quid in Costa a day, and it sounds like nothing, but this adds up.
Yeah, it's nuts.
So where we're going with this is, whilst it's not a you must come and speak to Liam conversation, like, listen to the story that Liam's telling, and regardless of whether it's Liam or it's another protection advisor that you go and speak to, it doesn't have to be expensive. Cover actually is quite affordable. People have this weird view, when I speak to people, it's going to cost me hundreds of pounds a month for something that might or might not happen. Surely I'd be better putting that money into the bank account and saving that money up. Well, two things. Like, one, you won't do that because we're all terrible at saving these things, or you'd already have it. You wouldn't be thinking about doing it now. You'd already have it. And secondly, no, it's not expensive. It's relatively affordable, as long as you work with an advisor that you trust. And I think that's key for me, is having somebody that you've had recommended that you trust, that you know that they're going to find the best package for you, not their back pocket. And try.
I think I'd add a point 3 to that. The point 3 would be you'd have a crystal ball. So if you knew that on December the 22nd, 2032, you were going to get diagnosed with cancer, you could probably think, right, okay, if I put away 500 quid a month until then, I'll have 32 grand. That's enough to cover my bills for the year. Perfect. I'll start doing it today. Nobody's got that. So you could start that today, and then tomorrow you feel a bit ill. You go to the doctor. I've got bad news. It is cancer. We're going to be okay. You're going to deal with it, but that's what it is. Nobody's got that crystal ball. Whereas that policy is there for the day that you need it. And yeah, I think there's a big perception out there, because I was on another podcast yesterday, actually, Dadvisor. He was asking me about what do you think people's barriers to protection are. And I said there's a big misconception that it doesn't pay out, which I think anyone that works in protection knows that's not the case. I think Aviva produced their stats a couple of days ago, and they paid out 99% of life insurance claims. Critical illness wasn't far behind either. And it's the cost, because for a lot of people who don't know what they're doing, and this isn't a dig at the general public, but they're not protection advisors, so they don't know what to look for. But what a lot of them will do is, if they've gone and got a mortgage, which is another main reason for people looking into it, they'll go to the bank, and the bank will say, how much is your mortgage? 320 grand. Okay, 320 grand of critical illness with our product that we can only recommend is going to cost you 193 quid a month. And that's as much as the exploration goes. So they'll think, I don't want critical illness because it's 200 quid a month and I can't afford that. Whereas you speak to any advisor, any good advisor is going to do a thorough fact find, really get to understand your circumstances, your priorities, your budget, importantly. And if someone came to me and said, my budget is 60 quid a month, which is relatively average, I would say, if not a little bit high, I wouldn't be then quoting them a kick product that's 200 quid, because they've already told me it's 60 quid. So what you do then, and what all good advisors do, and there are a lot of good advisors out there, is they'll say, right, we know that getting cancer or seriously ill is of a worry to you and it would cause you financial difficulty. So what we won't do is pay the whole mortgage off, but we'll make sure that for a period of 24 months, for example, we can put a lump sum in your bank account that means you can tap into that as and when you need it, pay your mortgage, put food on the table, pay your council tax, heat your house. And that little safety net is going to mean that all you've got to think about for 2 years, for example, is getting better.
Yeah.
And a good advisor will have that conversation with you.
Fantastic. Well, we've come to the end of the half hour, Liam, and as much as I'd love to chat about this, like we do and we have done in the past, chat for hours about all of these topics, from ADHD kids to ADHD parents, being parents in business, life protection. There's so much to kind of unpack from this. I'm sure anybody who's watching this along, hopefully you've got a lot of value from the conversations today. If you want to reach out to an advisor that Phil and I would highly recommend, then feel free to reach out to Liam. Like Liam says, there are other good advisors out there. Get a referral. If you're not going to go with somebody like Liam, get a referral from somebody who you know that trusts that person. Yeah. And Liam, feel free to, I've already dropped your LinkedIn profile in the comments below, but feel free to add in any contact details that you want on the live streams once we've closed this down. And if you are watching this along, whether it's live or whether you're watching it pre-recorded, feel free to drop your questions for myself, Phil, and Liam in the comments of the live stream, because we're more than happy to kind of chat about our own experiences and just share as parents in business, like what our challenges are, because it can be lonely. There's a lot to go through, and you shouldn't have to go through it alone. Thanks very much for your time today, Liam. Really appreciate your contribution to the webinar. Phil, good to see you're feeling better, mate.
I'm alive.
Yeah.
I should probably talk to Liam really about my insurance.
I was going to lead into that, but yeah.
I was trying to be delicate.
Yeah. No,
it's too late, Phil.
Yeah.
Right.
Brilliant. All right. Thanks very much. I'm going to leave with a short video now, a little bit about our Marketing Helpdesk community, which Liam is a part of. So you'll be able to get to chat to myself, Phil, Liam, and lots of other interesting people as part of it if you join. And we will catch you again next month for another episode. Phil, do you remember off the top of your head what we are discussing next month?
No.
Good. That's a cliffhanger that we'll leave it on for. Like it's
next
the marketing plan.
Talking about stuff. I think we're talking about something that we haven't actually asked the co-host to come and join us yet.
Yeah,
so
we do that a lot. We just spring it on people like I did Liam this month. It's all good. It is in a plan. We just don't bother speaking to people about it till it's urgent.
Yeah, we've secured the one for June. We've secured the one for June. We haven't done the one for April. We're doing well.
We'll not announce that yet, or we could and just pressure them into it. That'd be fun.
It's true. I mean, do you think he'd mind?
Find out. Right. Thank you for everyone for joining us for this episode, and look forward to speaking to you again soon.
Hope you've enjoyed the short day and lots of actionable points to take away. It's been a great having the guests on. Thank you everyone for coming along and taking part. Marketing Helpdesk is designed to help small business owners do more with less. You don't want to outsource, you haven't got the resources, you haven't got the time, you just want to get on with your own marketing, but just where do you start? To that point, we've launched an exciting new marketing community designed for people just like you. And at this moment in time, there's a special offer that we're running where you can get your first month's membership for only £1, £10 a month thereafter. We normally be £35. What can you expect from the community? We want you to know that this is your community. So there's going to be lots of opportunities for networking, peer-to-peer support, guidance, and you'll have the experts in there as well, giving their views on what you can do to get around the challenges that you face in everyday life. Good mix of industries and business sizes in there, so you can get advice and support from lots of different people, and some challenges and games, and make it fun along the way. Looking forward to seeing you in there. The link for the community is in the notes below, and if you need any support with the sign-up process, please feel free to give me a shout. Reach out, paul@marketing-helpdesk.com. Look forward to hearing from you, and we'll speak soon.